All right, my first question for you, Mark.
Yes.
In your book, you talk about planting a seed.
Yes.
And I learned about you that you are a stockbroker. You've clearly chosen a very different path. So what was that seed that was planted with you that leads to where you are today?
It's just the most bizarre story, and nothing I could have planned at any point. So there I was stockbroking because I thought that's what I wanted to do. I was very passionate about finance, and even when I was a teenager, my very first job I remember was a supermarket pushing carts and trolleys. I was always thinking about the traded options market because for some reason it excited me. So I get down to London, I get my job as a stockbroker, I talked my way in. I kind of talked my way into everything. But it was 5 years later when I woke up and I thought, I'm in the wrong job. I knew I didn't like it. I didn't like the people, sorry. I didn't like the hours. It was crazy. I had to be in the office at 5:30 in the morning. I wouldn't get out till 7 p.m. I had no life. The money was good, I'll give you that. But the seed was already planted that I had to get out. And it goes back again to what we always want in life. And what I'd always wanted in addition to finance was maybe being on television. So I thought, well, I'll just give it a go. And it was the most bizarre set of circumstances that went from TV, that by the way nobody ever watched, all the way through to the conference and event business, which led to the speaking, which led to the books, which led to more speaking, and now here I am. That's a very abridged story.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it is a much more broader story, but thanks for sharing with it. It's very interesting, and certainly I can relate with many people I've met who've had very interesting journeys, and they all start with that concept that you mentioned about that initial seed that got you in a different path.
It's always burning away in the back of your mind, and what's interesting is very few of us can plan it. I could not have sat there with my carts at the supermarket saying, I'm 17 years old, by the time I'm 44, I'm going to be engaged in this, that. And there's no way in the world. Yeah. But everything is a stepping stone.
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, there's a lot of resistance and worry about taking those steps and doing something different.
Yes.
And I think certainly the advice I give to people is it means so much to be passionate about what you do and be connected with what you do, and sometimes you have to kind of have to go with it a little bit.
Without a doubt, and actually, if I can build on that, I think you have to love what you do, because if you're not loving it, then it's not working for you. And that was the thing with the stockbroking, and you just talking, you made me realize what was going on. I was not loving it. That was my cue to leave. And sometimes, and very few people are brave enough to do this, sometimes you have to make a leap of faith. Because when I left stockbroking, I had nowhere to go. It wasn't like I knew I had a safe passage to the TV station. I went out and I thought, let's try again.
Well, listen, second question. I was just talking with someone the other day about perception is reality, and helping to explain to them that, that the way people perceive them is actually probably the most important thing. And I know this is something that you speak an awful lot about and have some advice to. So maybe you could give me some advice about if you want to alter how people perceive you, what advice would you give about that?
The most important aspect of understanding that perception is reality thing is to take a step back and actually view yourself as others view you. Because the real question is not what do people think about you when you're with them. The real question is what do they think about you after you've left the room. Because that's really the perception of you as a person. And to a very large extent, we can shape the way people view us. And you have to do this in a series of steps that really at the core of it, it's about understanding what people actually want to see. So for example, when I'm in front of, I work with many different groups of clients. When I'm in front of, say, IT developers, people who work in the IT industry, I know that they understand and want to hear a certain type of language. They want to hear certain types of references. They want advice and ideas and guidance that are geared towards their industry. So I change what I say and what I do so that they perceive me as someone that is within their industry, as someone they can actually listen to. So it's about taking that active step in understanding what do people actually want to hear. And people often say to me, is there a commonality amongst great communicators, those who are perceived very well? And I say, yes, there is, and I call it the 3 C's of effective communication. And we won't go into too much depth here because we just don't have the time. But they are consistency, clarity, and confidence. People buy consistency. You must always be consistent with what you say, the direction you take, and when you make a promise, you follow up on it. That's consistency. Clarity is the biggest challenge, by the way, because the more you understand about a topic or an idea, the more in depth you get into it in your own mind, you start to then share your concepts with others in your own language. That's not clear to other people, and so your messages are no longer sticky. So consistency, clarity, and then the confidence piece. Well, I never say to people, hey, be confident. We all are, and B, we get that already. But people will instantly sniff out when your confidence drops, when you don't know enough about something. So it's about being fully at ease with your content, with your topic, so you can talk about it from the heart, not just from a script.
Yeah, I think that's really good advice, and I was really interested to hear about your view about the 3 C's of communication. You make it sound really easy, and my guess is it's a little bit more difficult, particularly that item that you mentioned around looking at yourself and how people may perceive the way things are talking. And I think detaching yourself and being objective about how people may perceive you is a very difficult thing for people to do. What's your experience? I mean, is this a general thing that people are good at? And how is it that we can be better at that?
Okay, so there's another tool that I share with audiences, and it really is such basic common sense. I almost can't believe I'm going to talk about it, but I will. I call it the LWAR. And this is the way to, as you put it, detach yourself. The LWAR is the battle for communication excellence, and it's LWAR, and it stands for listen, watch, anticipate the needs of the person in front of you, and then respond. And by respond, I mean start talking, pick up the phone, create that email, walk into a meeting. Because only when you've truly listened to what people are saying, and most importantly, what they're not saying, when you've watched them physically, if you're lucky enough to sit with people, you've watched how they respond and what's going on, and then you've anticipated their world, their industry, their reality, and you've tried to understand, wait, they don't want to hear what I have to say, they want to hear something different. Only when you've done the L, the W, and the A are you fully authorized to actually start talking. So the majority of people do it all wrong. We do it in the wrong order. We launch in with what we have. We go in with our content. Sit down, everyone. Here's what I have to say. All wrong. Because that's not what they needed to hear. So it's about taking that extra step to truly consider your audience, whether it's one person or 4 people in a huddle or 1,000 people in an audience. Who are they? What is their world like? And how can I talk in their language and anticipate what they need? And there's an old phrase in sales, which is, don't sell what you have to sell, only sell what they want to buy. And that's our reality no matter what industry we're in.
Yeah. I think those are great insights, and I think the one takeaway, those are all really good, easy, simple messages.
Right.
We have to find the time, right? And I find knowing before you go into a meeting who's in the room, just taking a moment to think about things like that before you go in, because we tend to be very busy, go from one thing to the other, and that small investment in thinking about these things before you begin to communicate, it's small, but it can pay huge dividends.
Without a doubt, without a doubt.
Well, thank you very much, Mark, for sharing your insights. Much appreciated.
It's my absolute pleasure. I have to say, I'm loving your lounge here. This is great.
Thank you.